Good day, everyone. So now I'm going to discuss Chapter 6, Conformity and Obedience. So what is conformity? Conformity is a change in behavior or belief as the result of real or imagined group pressure. Moreover, conformity is the overall term for acting differently due to the influence of others. It is not just acting as other people act, it is also being affected by how they act. It is acting or thinking differently from the way you would act and think if you were alone. So we have acceptance. Acceptance is a conformity that involves both acting and believing in accord with social pressure. Acceptance occurs when you genuinely believe what the group has persuaded you to do. You inwardly and sincerely believe that the group's actions are right. Then we have compliance. It is a conformity that involves publicly acting in accord with an implied or explicit request while privately disagreeing. It is conforming to an expectation or a request without really believing in what you are doing. Then lastly, we have obedience. It is a type of compliance involving acting in accord with a direct order or command. So then we move on to the classic conformity and obedience studies. So first we have Sheriff studies of norm formation. Muzaffar Sharif observed that others' judgments influence people's estimates of the movement of a point of light that actually did not move. Then we have Ash studies of group pressure. It says that agreement with others are obviously wrong perceptual judgments. Doing as others do, fads such as tattoos. Then we have the Milgram's obedience studies. It tested what happens when the demands of authority clash with the demands of conscience. It is complying with commands to shock another, such as soldiers or employees following questionable orders. So, what breeds obedience, or what is the cause of doing obedience? So, Milgram did more than to reveal that people will obey an authority. He also examined the conditions that breed obedience. There are actually four factors that determines obedience. The first is the victim's emotional distance. Then second, the authority's closeness and legitimacy. Then whether the authority was part of a respected institution. And then lastly, the liberating effects of a disobedient fellow participant. So first we have the victim's distance. In Milgram's participants, they acted with greatest obedience and less compassion when the learners could not be seen and could not see them. When the victim was remote and the teachers heard no complaints, nearly all obeyed calmly to the end. Then, in terms of closeness and legitimacy of the authority, the physical presence of the experimenter also affected obedience. When Milgram's experimenter gave the commands by telephone, full obedience dropped to 21%, although many lied and said they were obeying. Other studies confirm that when the one making the command is physically close, compliance increases. Then, in terms of institutional authority, if the prestige of the authority is that important, then perhaps the institutional prestige of Yale University legitimized the Milgram experiment commands. In post-experimental interviews, many participants said that had it not been for Yale's reputation, they would not have obeyed. Then lastly, the liberating effects of group influence. So these classic experiments give us a negative view of conformity, but conformity can also be constructive. The heroic firefighters who rushed into the flaming World Trade Center towers on 9/11 were incredibly brave, but they were also partly obeying their superiors, partly conforming to extraordinary group loyalty. So next, we move on to what predicts conformity. So a first predictor to conformity is group size. So an example of this is the percentage of passerby who initiated or imitated rather a group looking upward increased as group size increased to 5 persons. Then anonymity, when someone giving correct answers punctures the group's anonymity, individuals conform only one-fourth as often. Then we have cohesion or cohesiveness, a weak feeling, the extent to which members of a group are bound together, such as by attraction to one another. Then we have the status. As you might suspect, higher status people tend to have more impact. Then we have public response. In experiments, people conform more when they must respond in front of others rather than writing their answers privately. Then lastly, we have prior commitment. Once they commit themselves to a position, people seldom yield to social pressure. So why conform? There are two reasons or influences as to why people conform. The first one is the normative influence. It is a conformity based on a person's desire to fulfill others' expectations, often to gain acceptance. Then we have the informational influence. It is a conformity occurring when people accept evidence about reality provided by other people. So who conforms to a conformity or obedience? First is personality. Personality effects loom larger when we note people's differing reactions to the same situation, as when one person reacts with terror and another with delight to a roller coaster ride. Then we have culture. Although conformity and obedience are universal, different cultures socialize people to be more or less socially responsive. Then we have social roles. Social roles involve a certain degree of conformity, and conforming to expectations is an important task when stepping into a new social role. So, do we ever want to be different? Um, we have the term called reactance. It is a motive to protect or restore one's sense of freedom. Reactance arises when someone threatens our freedom of action. Then we have the asserting uniqueness. Although not wishing to be greatly deviant, most of us express our distinctiveness through our personal styles and dress. That would be all. Thank you for listening.